All right, I guess I'm live, and yeah, let's see how this goes. Hi, I'm Nick, and I'm going to be talking about wingsuit deployment sequences. Um, guess we'll see if anybody's going to join, but yeah, this is going to be recorded and people will watch when it's time. Yeah, so I've been skydiving since 2011. Pretty much full-time skydiving since 2012. Just over 7,000 skydives, maybe 2,500 tandems and a couple hundred video jumps. A few hundred AFF jumps, maybe 300 AFF jumps. Um, Lots of fun jumps, maybe 400-ish wingsuit jumps, which is, I guess, kind of the important part since that's what we're going to be talking about today. Um, yeah, so we'll kind of jump into that. People watching, if you want to make comments, ask questions about any topics that are brought up, questions are always appreciated, and I can give a little bit more information rather than just rambling on. So, uh, questions in the comments area, and we'll kind of go from there. Sweet. So, um, thinking about wingsuit deployment, it's not something that you get to practice very often during a skydive. You can you can pretty much practice wingsuit deployment when it's time to deploy a parachute, right? You can practice some of the sequence leading up to when you're going to be throwing a pilot chute by just doing flares and stuff like that. But the entire process of the wingsuit deployment is kind of a long process from when you actually break off from your skydive to when a canopy is actually out and flying and you are trying to decide whether or not you're going to land on the drop zone or you're landing off, which could go either way, can it? So, first things that I'm thinking about after I break off or I'm getting ready to finish my skydive, um, doing a flare to slow down my airspeed a bit, um, slowing down downwards and forward a bit. And whenever you want to think about doing a flare for your opening, it doesn't need to be a massive, monstrous flare where you're climbing hundreds of feet before deploying a parachute. You're just trying to bleed off a little bit of speed, so you're not going to have such a hard opening. Uh, a lot of people have pulled in a full track, and that's not always a great time. So, kind of the same idea with flying a wingsuit. You're going to want to slow down a little bit so the opening's not going to thrash you around too much, which can also start to bring things like off headings and line twist and stuff like that, which most people don't really want to deal with. So a bit of a flare, leveling off a bit, so you're not exactly climbing and you're not exactly sinking out anymore, and you're in somewhat of a level flight configuration, and having some airflow over your back, so you don't have the big weight coming off, disturbing the air. Then pitching pilot chute. So get a pilot chute out into somewhat of clean air so you can have good canopy extraction, canopy inflation, and all that. Uh, Keep flying your suit thereafter and wait for your canopy to be inflated and start dealing with any problems that may or may not have come out of all of this. So let's kind of dig into the flare a little bit and kind of talk about angle of attack and kind of what that means and what we want. Um, Sometimes people can think of angle of attack as being head high or head low, and angle of attack isn't exactly represented from where you're pointed in relation to the earth or relation to the ground. It's more of how you're actually flying through the air. Um, so not thinking of if this is the ground, this is our high angle of attack, but if this is where the wind is coming from, this is kind of your high angle of attack, and this is starting to decrease and get a little bit steeper up, um, which will also kind of change and make you think about maybe the airflow of what's going on around your suit a little differently as well. So if we have a really good speed here and you start to make a flare and you're changing your angle of attack, if you smash a flare really fast, now you kind of have a big burble coming off of the back of you and you're disturbing more of the air behind rather than transitioning quite smoothly so the airflow kind of stays even over the top and bottom of your of your wingsuit and your flight surface that you're dealing with. So a nice slow smooth transition into level flight, climbing a bit, bleeding off speed, leveling out so you can still have enough speed to have lift to be flying and not so much sinking straight through so that your angle of attack is here. Like I said, we really want to keep the airflow smooth over top and bottom of the suit. That's a weird comment. Anyways, so if the air is coming smoothly over the top of your back, when you throw your pilot chute, you're going to have a more likely and pilot chute inflation with clean air and not having the massive wake over your back, which having a good pilot chute extraction and tension is going to make sure your canopy comes out smoothly and starts to inflate well and ideally symmetrically. If it's kind of dirty back there, you can start to have turbulence. I don't know if anybody's seen videos of um, when people are pitching and the canopy is actually being sucked back into the wingsuit, smashing the guy in the back and then coming back off. So kind of avoiding that by just keeping smooth airflow throughout the top of everything there. Another thing that happens whenever you do that big flare and you start to lose some of your airspeed is that the suit's going to depressurize a bit, which is going to make it a lot easier for you to reach back and actually grab your pilot chute. So you're not fighting against the suit so much to try and get a hand on a pilot chute. Um, so we've got our flare, we've slowed down a bit, now we're at level flight, and we're going to throw a pilot chute. When you reach back to pull, you want to try to keep everything symmetrical so you're not going to start turning or start diving or flaring more. Just nice even reach back, throw a pilot chute out nice and hard. Um, Inflation, wait for your parachute to come out, see what happens. One thing that's kind of nice during your skydive while you're flying around having a good time, you can practice pilot chute touches. So just reaching back, touching your pilot chute, and flying around with it that way for a little bit. So literally just fly around with both hands at the back of the container, holding a pilot chute, and you can still steer and fly around. The more comfortable you are being in this flight configuration, it's just going to make things a lot easier once it's time to actually use it. So it's kind of nice to spend a bit of time flying in a weird configuration with your arms and seeing what kind of control you still have over your suit while you just have a hand on a pilot chute. Um, yeah, so that's a thing. Keep flying. Once you have thrown your pilot chute, your job's not exactly over. Yes, you have started the deployment sequence, but you are still in free fall. You're still flying. Anything that you do in the suit is going to change the way you're moving through the air. So keep that in mind and don't just completely give up and go weak, but relax and stay engaged with the suit so you can stay level and not start to induce any turns. Um, Also, once you hit line stretch and your canopy is starting to inflate, um, if you're going to be a bit more level, it's going to be nicer to have even tension on the canopy so you don't hit one side more than the other, and then you're just going to swing yourself around into line twist, which if you're wingsuiting now and you're starting to wingsuit, just get ready for line twist because it's going to happen. There's no getting around it. Every once in a while, you're gonna have some line twist on a skydive, especially when you're in a wingsuit. So keep flying the suit. Wait for canopy to inflate, and then deal with whatever canopy stuff you have. Housekeeping stuff. You're gonna have to unzip your arm wings, so you can be free to use your hands and do whatever it is that you do. I don't usually know what to do with my hands, but things kind of just work out. You can usually still reach your risers with most wingsuits now, which is good if you need to make some sort of heading correction quickly. If you jumped with a big group, you opened your off heading and maybe you're flying at someone else, or you just want to change your heading so you're flying back to the drop zone rather than flying off into the countryside or off into the mountains, wherever you're jumping at. Um, yeah, then once you've done those corrections, you can unzip your arm wings, unzip your leg wings once it's time and everything's working out. Slider, all that. Happy days. Um, let's talk a little bit about the line twists. Um, because you're going to have line twists. A good way of sorting this out is not so much what we've been taught kind of early on of pulling risers apart, but now a lot of people are talking about bringing your risers together, twisting the line twist so it comes further down the lines and closer to your risers. So the line twists essentially come down closer to you. Now the idea of the swing set thing where you're pulling apart on a twisted chain to start spinning out of the line twist. The canopy is significantly bigger than where the start of your risers is. So maybe even think about using the canopy's spread as pulling the line twist down. Once the line twists come down closer to you, a lot of times the line twist will start to spin out on its own, but you can give it that little kick or even pushing against above the line twist to spin yourself out. Is kind of a technique that I've been using a lot more, and it seems to be quite helpful. Um, and that idea is starting to move around the community a bit more. Um, Other weird things that can happen that's really annoying is um, jumping in the winter when it's cold, and if you are wearing a long sleeve shirt. Um, a lot of times, if you're trying to unzip your arm rings really quickly, you can get your shirt sleeve stuck in the zipper, which is quite annoying, especially when you're going to need to use your arms for toggles and actually flying a parachute and stuff like that. Um, in the skydiving world, essentially, you've pulled nice and high, so you have a lot of time under canopy, and you can deal with that to an extent. Uh, but for people that might be wingsuit base jumping, or wingsuit base jumping is kind of in the back of your mind and the thing that you want to progress to, this is something to think about because when you're in the base environment, you're going to have a little bit less time. There's more obstacles around if you're jumping in the mountains and stuff like that. So you want to be able to unzip your arm wings quickly and efficiently so you can use your hands to sort out any off headings, line twist, fly your canopy to a landing area, and actually flare your parachute so you have a good landing and you can go up and do it again. Yeah, so that's a bit of housekeeping, line twist, heading stuff. Landing on the drop zone. Landing on the drop zone is pretty important. So when you're flying around your wingsuit, make sure you actually deploy in a place that's going to promote landing back on the drop zone. And it just keeps you from getting made fun of by the rest of the skydivers on the drop zone because, let's face it, we're all kind of assholes, and that's just what's going to happen, isn't it? Someone will hand you a map and tell you to study. If and when you are landing off, uh, usually when you're wingsuit skydiving, it's a really good idea to skydive with your phone, not so you can keep up with your Instagram and get some sick story videos and clips of you sitting in the airplane, but when you do land off, you can call somebody and let them know that you're safe and you're not broken or need help. Or if you do need help, you can also call and do that if needed. Some people like to keep a small stash bag in the wingsuit in the bottom leg pocket, which is kind of nice. If you're going to have to go for a hike, you can at least stash your canopy into the stash bag, throw it over your back, and start heading back to the drop zone, or whatever it is that you want to do from there. Let's talk a little bit about some gear configurations that will help have nice openings. Pilot chutes, super important, and having a long enough bridle. Um, you don't want it to be too long, but you also don't want it to be too short. Usually the 8 to 9 foot bridle is totally fine, and your pilot chute size will change a lot of your extraction. If the pilot chute's too small, you're not going to have a good snatch force to get the canopy out into air. If it's too big, then your extraction is so quick that the openings can start to be a bit harder. For skydiving, generally a 28 to 30 inch ZP pilot chute is fine. I personally have a 26-inch Squirrel Sky Snatch. That being said, I'm also jumping a Kraken 119 as my canopy, so the canopy is a bit smaller than what most people will probably be jumping. Ideally, your canopy is keeping you somewhere in the 1-to-1 wing load range. Once you start getting above that wing load, when you have those line twists or you have your off headings, if your canopy is starting to dive, then that stuff is going to be more aggressive because your wing loading is higher, so the performance of the canopy is going to be that much higher. So that's another thing to think about when you're starting to wingsuit, getting into wingsuiting, or you are wingsuiting. Having a nice wingsuit specific canopy will significantly change how much you enjoy actually wingsuiting. Um, and saving money, because reserved repacks are not the cheapest pack jobs to constantly be paying for, and it puts you out of jumping for the rest of the day. Base jumping pilot chutes. I personally have a 34-inch snatch for base jumping. Um, the canopy is also bigger. When I'm base jumping, I use a 230 square foot Squirrel Hayduke as my wingsuit setup. So yeah, bigger pilot chute, bigger parachute, nice extraction, all that good stuff. So we have a few people watching. If anyone has any questions, comments, concerns. Rob, hi. Hi, Drew. Hey, how's it going, buddy? Um, Anyone watching, let us know where you're coming from, what time it is where you're at. Do you have to watch it at a later time to match our time zones? I don't know. I guess I'll keep rambling for a little bit longer here, and then we'll essentially be signing off unless we have some questions that we can get to, and yeah, stuff like that. Another thing about line twists that we can quickly talk about is how to kind of avoid just having a diving line twist, because that's always annoying and sometimes difficult to get out of. Look at your risers, like see if there's anything uneven with your canopy setup and how you're sitting in the harness. If you have uneven risers or your three rings are off, that means that your canopy is turning. You're in a harness turn. Even a bigger parachute with a little bit of lean is still going to make a turn. The longer you sit there, you're going to be diving, continuing to pick up speed throughout that, so it's going to get faster. Um, and eventually you won't be able to get out of it, and that's when you're gonna have to cut away and get a good canopy out. Um, which then you very well could put yourself into line twist on your reserve, since you will be cutting away while you're in a spin, and things will be changing throughout. Um, so yeah, just I like to grab the risers and almost hang on them, or just set them so that the three rings are even, so your canopy is no longer in that harness turn and can stop diving. Um, Unless you have a toggle fire, the canopy should stop turning. Once the canopy stops turning, then you're going to have a little bit more time to deal with line twist and ideally get yourself out of the line twist and still land your main and not have to switch. Yeah, happy days. That's kind of some of the things that I like to think about when I'm doing my wingsuit jumping and getting ready to deploy a parachute. You can leave any sort of questions in the comments section on this. You can always find a wingsuit mentor or a wingsuit person on the drop zone that you're at. Tap into their information, see what they have to say. Feel free to find me on social media, send me a message. I'll more than likely have plenty of time to answer your questions. It's winter, so we're not skydiving, but we are spending a lot of time in the mountains snowboarding, and the sun goes down pretty early here in Norway, so I have time to answer questions, comments, concerns. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye. Ooh.